a menor suspeita podia mandar alguém para o cadafalso. Políticos que dissessem algo gentil sobre o monarca defunto. Qualquer um que empregasse o formal monsieur ou madame ao invés da nova forma de tratamento, cidadão e cidadã. A paranoia estava no ar. Vizinhos denunciavam vizinhos. O rolar das carroças da morte ressoava por Paris.
Execution is absolutely hanging over people's heads in the sense that we know in Paris there are police spies, and there are quite a few police spies everywhere, standing in bread lines, listening to what the women are saying, and turning them in if they don't like what they hear. You could be turned in not just for complaining about the high price of bread, but you could be turned in supposedly even for not being enthusiastic enough about where things were going and the successes of the revolution. So just about anything that would stand out for commentary could get you into trouble.
A convenção instaurou um tribunal revolucionário que expedia julgamentos e execuções com impiedosa eficácia. Para consolidar o poder, formou-se um conselho de 12 homens chamado Comitê de Salvação Pública.
Ultimately, power had to be delegated to a smaller group, and that group became the Committee of Public Safety. Ultimately, it became 12 people who really ruled France as a kind of collective dictatorship.
Com seu discurso magistral e visão revolucionária, Robespierre destacou-se como a voz dirigente do comitê. E essa voz clamava por mais sangue.
One of the paradoxes in Robespierre's political life is that he very early on is a passionate opponent of the death penalty. And of course this is thrown back in his face later when he becomes an equally passionate proponent of terror and the guillotine. He never particularly responds to that except to say, well, times have changed.
A revolução endureceu Robespierre. Outrora defensor da liberdade de imprensa, ele reativou a censura, vestígio do antigo regime. E com a igreja sob ataque, permitiu que um dos revolucionários mais radicais, Jacques-René Hébert, propusesse um novo programa, a descristianização.
When the crisis of the war and internal rebellion is at its height, people begin to say the root of all the problem is priests, is religion. And what we've got to do if we're ever going to be safe against the enemies of revolution is destroy the power of the Catholic Church. Superstition, fanaticism, that's what religion is all about, and therefore what we have to do is stamp out this whole thing entirely.
Ruas com nomes de santos foram renomeadas. Ícones religiosos foram destruídos e substituídos por tributos ao novo santo, Marat.
The church came to seem simply the enemy to the radical revolutionaries. Churches and cathedrals are simply stripped of their altars. Stained glass is smashed, statues are smashed. The wealth of the churches is simply carted off. Of course, for European opinion, this was something even more shocking than the death of the king.
Nem o calendário cristão foi poupado. Os anos não eram mais contados a partir do nascimento de Cristo, mas desde setembro de 1792, a queda da monarquia. Agora era o ano 1. Os meses foram renomeados de acordo com as estações. Julho tornou-se termidor, abril, floreal. Os meses foram divididos em 3 semanas de 10 dias cada.
The revolutionary calendar was certainly designed as a kind of weapon against Christianity, against Christian belief. Of course, by having a 10-day week, you'd no longer have Sundays, so people wouldn't even know what day Sunday was anymore. That's what they hoped.
O terror espalhou-se pela França. Insurreições eram reprimidas com implacável crueldade. Na cidade de Lyon, onde contra-revolucionários ganhavam terreno, o Comitê de Salvação Pública instaurou um exemplo brutal. Centenas de rebeldes foram amarrados, levados aos campos e massacrados. A região de Vendée, no oeste da França, tornara-se outro baluarte contra-revolucionário. Rebeldes e padres foram amarrados e colocados em barcos cheios que eram impiedosamente postos a pique. Mais de 100 mil pessoas foram mortas só em Vendée. Em Paris, a guilhotina caía em um ritmo cada vez mais frenético. Com o sangue do terror, Maximilien Robespierre salvara a revolução. Um exército revigorado repelia os ataques na fronteira e dissensões internas estavam aniquiladas. No apogeu de seu sucesso, Robespierre sonhava com um objetivo mais elevado: usar o terror para moldar um novo tipo de sociedade. Uma república da virtude.
By virtue, he means civic virtue. It's an active principle for Robespierre. For example, you cannot be a virtuous citizen by simply obeying the laws and keeping your head down. You must actively be involved in the work of the state, and that includes for Robespierre destroying the enemies of the state.
Em 5 de fevereiro de 1794, Robespierre esboçou sua filosofia em um discurso.
Terror sem virtude é desastroso, mas virtude sem terror é impotente.
He associates terror with virtue. Terror at that moment becomes in his thinking an instrument by which you create virtue.
Com os dantonistas fora do caminho, Robespierre lançou a França em um período ainda mais sinistro e sangrento: o Grande Terror.
The Great Terror is the name given to the last phase of the terror in the spring of 1794 into the summer of 1794. It's the period at which the tempo of executions really starts to increase, at which the atmosphere of paranoia, particularly in Paris, but really across the country, starts to increase exponentially. You can track the number of executions until it's up to almost 800 per month in Paris, towards the end even more.
Os carrascos em Paris estavam mais ocupados do que nunca. Mas em 6 de junho de 1794, o rolar das carroças silenciou. A guilhotina ficou imóvel. Robespierre promulgara um novo feriado religioso, o Festival do Ser Supremo. Ele queria substituir o antigo Deus católico por um novo, a deusa da razão.
One thing about Robespierre is that he never supported these atheist policies. He believed that people needed a divinity to believe in. And he helped sponsor this cult that was called the Cult of the Supreme Being, with this extraordinary tableau in Paris, in I believe it was June of 1794, which had choirs of people dressed in white singing. You had this kind of papier-mâché mountain that was built in the center of Paris. And then at the critical moment of the ceremony, you had Robespierre himself sort of emerging on the top of this mountain, clad in a toga, and marching down. And I think at this moment, a lot of people felt, all right, who does he really think he is? Does he think he's God here? Does he think he's the king?
Enquanto o Grande Terror prosseguia, os colegas de Robespierre viam o Festival do Ser Supremo como o divórcio entre ele e a realidade.
There are those who think that Robespierre really has reached so extreme and so unreasonable a position that he can't turn back, that his fanaticism has somehow overtaken him, and there are those who think he's just gone nuts.
The question raised by the French Revolution is how much violence is justified in achieving a better society? Do people have the right to overthrow what they see as an unjust system, to replace it with what they are convinced in their hearts is a more just system? How much violence is justified in doing that? We still face this question today.
Enquanto Robespierre e seus colegas dirigiam seu país rumo ao futuro, muitos devem ter se perguntado o que este reservava. Mais de 200 anos após o nascimento da República Francesa, o fantasma de Robespierre assombra revoluções, desde a Rússia até o Vietnã, da China à América Latina.